Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. If you are new and this is the first video you're ever seeing, I like to make videos on Sisterlocks. I like to share my journey. It's been an eventful journey. I'm actually on my second set of Sisterlocks. If you are already subscribed to my channel, or if you're coming back here for the second, third, fourth time, welcome back. It's great to have you. I wanted to do a brief video. Brevity is not my strength, but I wanted to do a brief video because as I said, I'm on my second set of Sisterlocks and I am loving being back in the fold. It'll always be Sisterlocks for me, but hopefully this is my last time. As I've come back, and I'm much happier this time round. If you've seen my last video, you'll know I'm much happier. My locks are completely different to the first time round because they're all natural. And I just think I've had a better install and a better experience than the last time. I still haven't counted how many I've got, but I just feel better. My hair was healthier this time round, etc. So I'm in a good place. But I wanted to come back and talk quite candidly about some of the errors I made the first time round and why I was in the situation that I had to have. I felt I had to take down the first set and put in a second set. So the first thing I would say where I went terribly wrong was in terms of consultants. I had 4. So the lady that's put in my Sisterlocks this time round, Michelle Smith, Sister in Touch, who works out of South East London and has been doing Sisterlocks for 17 years. She's a brand ambassador and she really gives a damn. She really cares. It's not just a business for her. She mentors, she networks, she puts on events. She does a lot in the UK and beyond, and she follows Sisterlocks. She believes in Sisterlocks. She believes in the system, and she doesn't feel that there's a need to vary anything as far as she's concerned. It works, and she's seen it work for 17 years. That's not to say she's not got her own ideas and innovative ways of, making things better. But for the most part, she sticks fastidiously to the process. So I'm really glad I met her. She did my daughter's Sisterlocks, and I researched thoroughly for that because my daughter's 5. And I'm really pleased with her Sisterlocks. So when I took mine down after getting some advice from her about what it all looked like, I knew that I was in safe hands. But that's the first place I went wrong with consultants, and not because the consultants necessarily were bad at all. I've got nothing negative to say about any of the consultants that I came across. I think that where I went wrong is that I didn't do my research properly into those consultants. The chemistry needs to be right. So many people say that, and they're absolutely spot on, particularly if you're a fussy person like me. And I am fussy, and I'm not the kind of person that just takes somebody's word for something. I question everything and I challenge everything, not to be confrontational or difficult, but I guess that's just the person I am. And I didn't do enough of that, I think, when I was picking my Sisterlock consultants, which led to me hopping about for various different reasons. And ultimately that was my downfall with the first set of Sisterlocks, because there was no consistency, and I just felt that the connections were not quite right, except in one case where she was a wonderful person. I loved her on a whole different level, like she was just someone that you could vibe with. But the issue was she just didn't have the experience, and I very naively believed that a Sisterlock trainee would be fine once I got my grid in, because I felt like, my grid needs to be done by someone really seasoned, a seasoned veteran, so that it's on point, and then I can move on if I need to a trainee, because the reties are just reties. And that was the wrong attitude, especially for someone like me, because I wasn't going to be comfortable learning with being the subject of an inexperienced Sisterlock consultant. I did want someone that had lots of experience, and I was prepared to pay the money for someone that had lots of experience. But I just kind of messed that up. So that's the first place I went wrong. The other place that I went wrong is in braiding and banding. So I only found out through Michelle that actually, and I've seen it on Instagram and also on YouTube, that when we braid and band our hair, first of all, I was doing it too big initially, so my locks swelled, and I was washing very often because I've got scalp psoriasis, so every 7 to 10 days. Where I was going wrong is that I was taking the bands out when the hair was still wet, and that can cause slippage because your hair's more pliable when it's wet. I've also got soft hair, they tell me, in a fairly loose curl texture. So it was really the wrong thing to be doing, and it can lead to bunching and fat ends. So that wasn't a good thing to be doing. So now I need to leave the braids in until my hair is completely dry. I used to take it out, separate, and then plait it back more tightly for a braid out. Actually, with my natural hair, it's not necessary really to do that quite so much. The other thing I went wrong with is, and Michelle is the only one that's told me this, that I should have been braiding my hair more often to train it. I didn't. So I just left it like I've got it now. I'd go to bed with a cap on, but I would leave it, I wouldn't braid it. Who had time for that? What Michelle said to me is actually, several times a week, particularly in the early stages, you should braid your hair to go to bed, and actually you should just braid it in general. Just braid it. So I have it in two, I have it in however. I've just taken it out a couple of hours ago because I put some aloe vera gel on my scalp because my scalp was a little bit itchy. So I put some aloe vera gel on it. That's another thing I've discovered. I don't have to wash every 2 seconds. I can just put some aloe vera gel on the bits, the patches of psoriasis that I've got that are causing me an issue, and that works really well. So that's another thing that I learned. The other thing that I learned, and this is a big point, because I didn't have a relationship with a consistent Sisterlock consultant, they didn't really know my hair, and when I started to see what was bunching, slippage and things like that, they didn't correct it even though I pointed it out. I even had one of them say, well, that's just the way your hair grows. Your hair's like that. Your hair is going to be bunchy. That's the way your hair grows. When I met Michelle and she examined my hair and my grid and everything, she said, no, that's just not been corrected, and now your locks are really hard. It's difficult to fix it. It's difficult. It can be done, but it's going to be difficult. And because my grid wasn't very good either, I just decided I'm going to take the whole thing out and start again. But I think bunching and slippage can be fixed, helped in the early days if you have a consultant that actually listens. One of the things that I found really peculiar is that when you have issue with your locks, when a lot of people have contacted me since I've talked about this stuff, and I've shared taking down my locks, putting my locks back in and all of that, and quite a few people have seen my bunching and seen my locks. Thankfully I don't think anyone's so far has been as bad as mine, but those that have contacted me have said, well, I've seen some stuff in my locks and I've asked my consultant and she's just said that's okay. It's not okay. It really isn't. I'm no expert, but you know what your locks look like, and if one or two of them or 4 or 5 of them are acting very differently to somewhere else, you're quite right to question it, and I think they should be helping. But what I feel like is that consultants, not all of them obviously, but I think a lot of them focus on retying, getting you in and getting you out, not actually paying attention to how your locks are doing. And then they say, we'll need to book you in for corrections. Well, my Sisterlock consultant, who's been going for 17 years, when she does my daughter's reties and when she does mine, she's looking at each of the locks. And if I've got any problem locks, I'm telling her about them. So with my daughters, I haven't had any problems, but I've asked her. And she's looking and she's correcting them then and there. And that's what she said to me. She's correcting them then and there. If that means we go over the 3 hours that she's allocated to us and we have to pay more, fine. I'd rather that than it getting much, much worse. And, 2 months, 3 months later, sitting in the chair for 4 hours trying to correct things that I was telling you about a month ago. It doesn't make sense. But I think a lot of people experience this. And I'm not sure why. I think perhaps it's vague from a Sisterlock's perspective. So we know that there's some standard around having a consultation, having your install, and then having your follow-up, and that's all included in one price, let's say. I think beyond that, when we get into retie territory and maintenance, I think there's not enough guidance around that, and I think that's the area where it can be exploited. Now, don't get me wrong, if you've got an individual who is going swimming every week without braiding and banding and blowing out their whole hair, then absolutely that's willful neglect. But if you've just got the odd thing that occurs with someone and they're raising the question, why wouldn't you, as their loctician, want to resolve that then and there? Because this is your marketing. Videos like I'm doing now are your marketing. And if we're walking around with funky locks, stepsister locks, whatever you call them, that's not good advertising, is it? Not for you as a consultant, nor the Sisterlocks brand. It isn't. And I know the world is made up of different people and everybody's got different aspirations and ideas and all the rest of it, but I just feel that that's an area, certainly since it's happened to me and I've spoken to others, I feel that's an area that could be made much better for people. And I'd love to hear what you've got to say about it. Does your consultant fix things then and there? If you go over a little bit in time, it might cost you a little bit more. Or have you got one of those consultants who says, it's nothing to worry about, oh okay, well I'll book you in for a repair session or a correction session and that's going to cost you X amount. How does it work for you? Yeah, because I think reties are more than just reties. I think they're maintenance, I think they're looking over, I think they're being proactive rather than reactive. You know, I used to go for reties every 4 weeks, like clockwork. At some points I was even going every 3 weeks, like clockwork. Never quibbled about the cost, about the time, nothing like that. Put me right, do me right. And my locks were a disgrace. My locks were an absolute disgrace. And to be fair, I had one consultant towards the end who was working on it longer than anybody else had, but she wasn't a Sisterlocks consultant. And by then there's no accountability because I've had 4 sets of hands in my headpiece. So whose fault is it? Mine. But this time round, thankfully, I've got a consultant who is consultative, you know, where we have proper dialogue, where I trust her with my hair and I feel as though we can have honest discussions. You know, the other thing about her as well is that she's more than reasonable in pricing to the extent that I've actually said, no, actually, I'm going to pay a little bit more because she's just completely reasonable and fair and principled and caring and wants to do the very best. She's proud, you know, there's a pride that runs through her when she's doing your hair. I love her. You know, unless she gets rid of me or she leaves the country or something, I'll just be with her forever because she's great. And we should all feel like that about our consultants, you know. Anyway, as I've said before, I think Sisterlocks need an Uber rating system, a transparent system where clients can be rated and Sisterlock consultants can be rated, because once they're signed off from Sisterlocks, that's it. They're measured by complaints, if they're measured at all. You know what I mean? And actually, I think it should be both ways. I think it should be compliments and complaints, and I think it should be qualitative feedback so that you can decide whether that's someone for you. Because I would have known that the other 4 probably weren't for me, not because they're bad people, just because it wouldn't fit quite right, you know. Whereas I know with this consultant that she absolutely fits for me for a multitude of reasons. And if we had a transparent rating system, rating system, I think that we could professionalise Sisterlocks, and I think it's time for it to be modernised, because it's a phenomenal revolution and I'm really happy to be part of it. Anyway, what do you think? What are your thoughts? The only other thing I want to say is my daughter's got build-up, which is driving me a little bit mental, but she's 5 years old and she rolls around and she's a kid. So I'm working on that. I'm working on that with her, but she's got build-up. The ACV stuff didn't work. I could only do that partially because the locks are fairly new. But I have discovered Neutrogena anti-residue and I've ordered it and I've seen the reviews online if any of you are having issues with build-up, because I had terrible build-up at the back of my last locks. But this Neutrogena anti-residue clear bottled stuff, it's not completely natural. There are sulfates and stuff in it, but if you Google that with locks, people are raving about it, really raving about it. So I've ordered some and I'm going to test it out on my daughter and see how we go. You have to replenish the hair thereafter with nourishment, moisture and stuff like that, which is fine. But that apparently is really good, so I've bought some because I think that's definitely going to come in useful for me at some point. And I know it's not natural and perfect, but actually I don't intend to use it all the time. Anyway, peace out.